Hey everybody, nice to see you guys. It is week 5. Happy Valentine's Day if you're celebrating. So excited. I cannot believe how fast this feels like it's going. We're already more than halfway through, and so far I am so impressed with all of your progress. Hey Ken, I see you. Thanks for joining. I really am. Hey Don, you've been sending me your pictures every week. I've been seeing all the different colors, new foods that you've been adding to your diet, cutting back on snacks. I cannot tell you how impressed I am and how excited I am for all of the improvements that you are going to be experiencing. I think the main thing, hey Nancy, thanks for joining. The main thing is to keep these habits up, right? It's so easy to kind of do things once in a while, but intentionally waking up every single day and saying, today I am going to eat my fruits and vegetables, I'm going to eat a couple of different colors, I am going to do my best to avoid snacking, but I'm also going to enjoy a really healthy, satisfying meal that includes my fruits and vegetables, my resistant starch, my rice and potatoes, beans, oatmeal, whatever that is, and a healthy protein. So making sure that if food is fuel, food is fuel, food is information, food is enjoyment, food is so many things, and it's important to celebrate that and enjoy it, and don't look at it as a job or something that we have to constantly restrict. It's medicine. It's literally what heals us and what keeps us healthy throughout the years of our lives. So please enjoy it, and just remember, that you're going to be waking up every day and making these good, healthy intentions, but that it's not to think of food as a negative thing in any way. It's actually very positive and will keep us healthy for a long time. Okay. So we are up to week 5, and this week's challenge is going to be about choosing whole, unprocessed foods. One of the things that unfortunately makes the standard American diet most unhealthy is the fact that we've become accustomed to eating foods that are prepackaged, prepared foods that we can just stick into the microwave and warm up. And unfortunately, when we eat foods that are so convenient like that, and that's why we tend towards picking those things, they oftentimes include ingredients, additives, preservatives, extra high fructose corn syrup, and highly saturated fats that are high in omega-6 fatty acids, which are inflammatory to us. And all of those ingredients cause inflammation in our body. So let's think about this. Whole, unprocessed foods. Imagine when you walk around the perimeter of the supermarket and you see all the foods that the way they look there in the store is the way they looked when they were originally picked from nature. So all the fruits and vegetables, all the animal proteins, that is the raw meat and all that kind of stuff, those foods, in your mind that is exactly what it looked like when it was taken out of nature. There was nothing taken out of it, and there was nothing added to it. So for example, when you walk towards the center of the supermarket and you see all these foods in packages, and you look at the ingredient label, and it includes ingredients that had to be produced in a laboratory. They were not made in nature. So all these chemicals and compounds that you could barely pronounce, that this was not grown from the ground or picked out of nature, and instead it was, produced in a laboratory and added to the food to either extend the shelf life or make the food taste better or make the consistency more favorable to us, or even make it convenient enough for us to cook in a microwave instead of preparing from scratch. So that is how you know that those foods are highly processed versus the foods that I was talking about in the beginning, where we see them in the perimeter of the supermarket and we know that those foods were just taken out of nature and then brought into the supermarket, and that's that. I will give you an example of some sneaky processed foods that you may not think of. Hey Deb, thanks for joining, I see you. So some sneaky processed foods that you might not think of as being processed is white flour, as an example. Because if you can imagine, white flour is not the way that food looked when it was taken out of nature. It was originally a very high fibrous grain that they had to peel off all of the layers of good nutritious fiber, and they get down to this white, consistency or white product, and then they process it into a flour. So white flour is an example of a very highly processed food, because not only did I include processed foods as the ones where ingredients were added to it, but also foods where many parts were taken out of it. So that is an example of a processed food. So is sugar. Sugar is a food that is not exactly the way it looked in nature. That is exactly what it had to go through many processes in order to look like white sugar that's found in the supermarket. Hey Paula, good morning. Thanks for coming. So we are this week, the challenge is going to be this. Choose a food that you would normally grab out of a bag or something that was already prepackaged and pre-prepared, and try to make it from home from scratch, or replace it with something that would be whole and unprocessed. So some examples of this would be French fries, potato chips, right? You don't even have to deep fry these things. You can cook them in the oven, roasted, but choose a food that you would, maybe oatmeal in the morning that you would buy prepackaged, and maybe you can instead make it from rolled oats yourself. And I'm going to give you an example today of a nut bread that you can eat in the morning in place of any type of white bread that you would normally toast and eat in the morning. I think this is a great example of, it's a really high fiber nut bread that is delicious and can easily replace a piece of bread that you would eat in the morning for breakfast. But I also wanted to explain why this is so important. I kind of got into it already, and I kind of explained how when you eat an ingredient that your body doesn't recognize, it causes inflammation. But I wanted to take an additional step and look into that thought a little bit further. Number one, what is inflammation? Inflammation is any time your body is reacting to something that is either recognized as foreign, so a germ, a virus, a flu, or when your body is recognizing something as an injury. So that's why you will always see an obvious sign of inflammation on our skin. If we bump into something, if we hurt ourselves, you see the signs of your body sending out cells to heal that injury. You'll see redness or sore or heat or it's swollen. So those are all obvious signs of inflammation. But that actually is what is going on inside our body when our insides recognize a food that is maybe considered threatening to the body, or when you breathe in and inhale a toxin, or when you are exposed to a germ, a flu, a virus, something like that. Inside, there is that same type of inflammation that we can see on the outside when we injure ourselves, but that's happening inside. And so inside, our body is sending cells to this spot and trying to remove whatever we absorbed or inhaled or ate or whatever that is causing your body some distress. So inflammation that takes place inside your body gives you signs of GI upset, right? That would be a sign of inflammation inside, or high blood pressure, or joint pain, or a headache, or some type of mood dysregulation. These are all signs of some type of inflammation that is taking place inside the body, and it could happen because of all those things I've already mentioned: eating something that your body doesn't recognize, being exposed to a germ or a flu, breathing in a toxin, something like that. Now, inflammation will also happen when you eat a food that is either considered foreign to your body, so any of those processed ingredients that I talked about before that they're putting together in a laboratory and adding to your food to make the food last longer, taste better, have better consistency, and you look at the label and you see those words, compounds and chemicals that you could barely pronounce, that were not picked out of nature this way and were put together in a laboratory. Those ingredients will cause inflammation because your body doesn't recognize them as food. Another thing that happens with inflammation is you can't lose weight. So many people think, oh, well, I'm cutting down on all these calories and I'm eating all these fat-free and sugar-free and low-cal foods and I'm up to, 1,100 calories a day. Why can't I lose weight? And I say, well, let's look at the ingredient labels of those low-calorie, low-fat, low-sugar foods and see how many of those ingredients does your body react to, because it's not recognizable, because those are ingredients that are not food and instead they're chemical compounds that were put together in a laboratory. So, gosh, that was a lot of information. Okay, so this week we are choosing a whole unprocessed food to replace something that we would normally purchase in a processed, prepackaged form. So be creative about this. It doesn't have to be something you do every single day, but let's do it once during this week, and maybe it'll be a food that you prepare and there'll be enough left over that you could eat it throughout the week. If you are not concerned about gluten, what flour is best for bread making? Great question. So you can absolutely use the higher fiber flours like wheat flour. Those kind of things are ones where you know that not as much of the fiber was taken out of it because it's still there in the flour that you're using. I do love things like almond flour, coconut flour. They do add a delicious flavor to the breads and things that you're making. You do have to play around with ratios because it's not a one-to-one, replacement to white flour. But those flours are much less processed because they're literally just taking the nuts and, just breaking them up to make that consistency. But they're not taking anything out of it and they're not adding anything to it. So I would say either look for those really high fiber flours where you can look at the ingredient label and you can see how many grams of fiber per serving, and you should see like a high number, like at least 4 per serving, but I'm hoping you might even see more than that. And that would be a proof that they didn't take as much off of the original grain that we were using. Or you can use one of these nut flours, coconut, almond, I'm sure I'm missing ones. Oat flour can be used too. So so that, I hope that answers your question. And if you need more suggestions, I could probably even give you some links to ones on Amazon or something like that I would pick. Okay, so today I have made this recipe once before, a long time ago, but I don't know if all of you were here, so I'm going to show it to you again. And I loved it so much, and actually I am going to make a couple of changes to it because I remember at the time I do have a really sweet tooth, and I remember thinking I love it, but I would love for there to be a tiny bit more sweetness in here. And I'm going to show you how sweet does not always mean unhealthy. You can actually choose sweet ingredients to make your food taste the way you want them to, but have healthy ingredients. So I already have in here some oats, rolled oats. So right away I'm getting my fiber, I'm getting my unprocessed carbohydrate that's high in resistant starch. So that's that fiber that feeds the bacteria in our gut. I think I talked about that last week a little bit. In here I have some ground flax seeds. Flax seeds are super healthy. They're high in fiber, which feed the bacteria in our gut, help our digestion. They are also high in the precursor for omega-3 fatty acids. So that is the anti-inflammatory fatty acid as opposed to the inflammatory one that I talked about before, which was omega-6. This is omega-3. The standard American diet is too high in omega-6 and not high enough in omega-3. So omega-3 fatty acid is anti-inflammatory. It is what you get when you eat fatty fish like salmon and tuna, mackerel, and you can also get the precursors to the omega-3 fatty acids. So it's supposed to turn into omega-3 fatty acids in your body, and you can get that from things like flax seeds and chia seeds, which I'm going to be adding to this recipe as well. It is important to know that omega-3, or these precursors, they get oxidized in the air very easily. So if you really want to get the benefit of the omega-3 fatty acid, it is helpful if you buy whole organic flax seeds. Keep that bag of whole organic flax seeds in the freezer so that nothing gets oxidized, and in small batches, when you want to use them, you can grind them up in just a small little coffee grinder, really inexpensive one. It takes 2 seconds. Just keep the ground flax seeds in a small little closed container in the refrigerator, and you can eat that for a couple of days and then do it again. So that's what I do. Honestly, it sounds like a pain in the neck, but it's not. It's a very easy little process, and for the health benefits, I would recommend doing that. So purchasing whole organic flax seeds and keeping them in the freezer, and then grinding them in small batches in a small coffee grinder, and keeping the ground flax seeds in the refrigerator in those small containers. And by the way, the reason that we do have to grind them is because that is what will make those precursors of omega-3 fatty acid available to our body. If it's in the whole seed, you don't really digest, you don't really grind it up good enough, and you don't really get the benefit of that ingredient. I hope that made sense. Sounds a little confusing, I think, as I say it. Okay, so I have some flax seeds here, some ground flax seeds. I have some chia seeds. Chia seeds, on the other hand, I do just already buy them ground. They're not as high in those precursors, so I'm not as concerned with that ingredient. With the chia seeds, I'm more excited about getting my fiber. And if you happen to be dairy-free in your diet, chia seeds are high in calcium. So who knew? So I think this is going to be 3 tablespoons of ground chia seeds. Like I said, I buy them already ground and keep them in the refrigerator just like that. I have over here about a cup of sunflower seeds. So you can see how nutty this is going to be, and this is why I felt like the last time I wanted to add a little more sweetness and even a little bit more moisture, just so it wasn't so dense. And I'm also adding a type of fiber called psyllium husk powder. Psyllium husk powder, let me just go get a tablespoon I wanted to use. So this is easily, you can purchase if you are the type of person who has a little bit of trouble with constipation. This could help. It actually could do both. It could help with a little constipation, but it also could bulk up your stool, not to be gross. So if you're having any sort of GI trouble, then this could be a helpful answer. So psyllium husk flour. And then a little bit of salt, and I'll show you what I'm going to do for my sweetness that I wanted to explain to you. I think this takes a teaspoon of salt, and of course, as always, I will give you this exact recipe if you're interested. I have to concentrate for this because this comes out really fast, and I'm a little afraid that I'll end up pouring a whole bunch of salt all over this. Okay, there we go. Okay, perfect. Whew. I have yet to completely mess up one of my recipes while I'm on video, so I'm hoping to, each time I come on, you never know what's about to happen, so I'm hoping today's not that day. Okay, so I have some chopped, I had pecans and almonds, so that's about a half a cup. And for my little bit of more moisture, I'm adding some chopped dates. Dates, I've talked about this many times before. It's very helpful for your bones, for your hormones, and for your digestion. Really healthy. So you can have those every single day. And then I have high cacao chocolate. So this is more than 70% cacao chocolate. You can either buy it in a bar and chop it up, or chocolate chips if you can find the ones that are more than 70%. But this is going to be a breakfast that I'm really going to enjoy. I don't think I'm going to miss my toast or my white bread in any way. Okay, so let me put this all in here. And this is also actually a very easy recipe because everything just goes into this one thing. And then I'm just gonna add in some of the wet ingredients, and that's it. It goes straight in the oven, cooks for 20 minutes. So simple. So here I'm going to mix together, this is 1.5 cups of water, and then a little bit of coconut oil and maple syrup, and that is it. It all just goes together and cooks in about 20 minutes. I'm telling you, this is a breakfast you're gonna look forward to. You could even have it at lunch. It's so healthy. All nuts are extremely healthy for you. They're high in so many nutrients that we don't get enough of. I think I talked about this last week, that they're high in that magnesium, which unfortunately I don't think American people get enough of magnesium. And that is number one, needed for energy all day long. It's needed for to actually calm us down before we go to sleep at night. Magnesium is used for that. It's also used to heal some joint pain, and it helps with our digestion as well. Okay, so that, and then I think it's 1 tablespoon of maple syrup, and that's it. All right. So I can't wait to eat this myself, and I can't wait for you guys to try it. I'm going to show you what it all looks like when I mix everything together, and then I'll just review. I feel like I talked roundabout today a little bit, so I'll just sort of organize my thoughts a little bit and review what we talked about. Oops, that's a little bit on the table. Okay. Okay, yes. And then I'm just gonna mix it. By the way, I did use a little bit of ghee to sort of rub on the baking pan before I started this, just so that maybe things won't stick as much. But I don't really want to spend my whole time mixing. I wanted to review what we talked about, but when you mix this, it really does come together, and it is a really delicious nut bread. I can't wait to eat it, and I really would love for you to try it. Okay, so let me just review a little bit. So this week, we are going to replace one food that we would normally purchase already prepackaged and processed, and we are going to attempt to cook it at home from scratch. Make enough so that you can grab it to go throughout the week, so you can use it just like as if it was processed and prepackaged. But so be creative about it. If you need some more ideas, I could definitely help you out. Let me know if you're struggling to think of something, and I'll come up with some more ideas for you. The reason we're doing that is because when we eat foods that when you walk around the supermarket and you know that the food there in the supermarket looks exactly the way it looked when it was taken out of nature, then we know our bodies are going to recognize those foods as whole foods with full of vitamins and minerals and nutrition, and there is not going to be inflammation being caused. When we choose foods that have ingredients that are unrecognizable, that were put together in a laboratory, our body will treat that ingredient the same way it would treat a germ, a virus, an injury. All of those things are cause for inflammation, where our body is going to send out immune cells to either remove that ingredient or heal the injury or heal the exposure to the germ or whatever. But all of those examples are examples of inflammation, and when your body is dealing with inflammation, it will tell all of your calories and fat and food that you're storing and say, store those things as fat, because right now we're worried about inflammation. We're worried about healing your body from this new thing that came in. So that's why it will inhibit you from losing weight if you're eating lots of foods that your body doesn't recognize. So I hope all of that information made sense. If you have any questions at all, please let me know, and I'll try to describe it. Sometimes in written down it makes a little bit more sense than sometimes hearing it. So let me know, and let me know if you want the recipe to this. I will show you a picture if you're interested of it when it's all finished. But it was really great to see you, and keep up the amazing work that you're doing. Just remember each day to wake up and set that intention that today you're going to do these certain habits that we've accomplished so far, and you're going to continue with them, and you're still going to always remember that food is enjoyable. Food is energy, it is medicine, it is fuel, and celebrate it and use it for those purposes. So I hope that was great for you guys. It was good to see you, and I'll see you again next week. Have a good week, everybody. Bye-bye.